to mark World Suicide Prevention Day. I'm Simon Cheng, I'm Deputy Chief Nurse at South London and Maudsley, and I'm going to be the compare for today's event. This year, we're pleased to be delivering this event in partnership with Mind, who will also be working with to deliver a new South East London suicide bereavement service. And we're going to hear a little bit more about that service later on today. Just some housekeeping. Please do post comments and questions in the chat function. And also, this subject is upsetting. So if you feel upset by today's event, please talk to someone about it. We're recording today's event and the recording will be available on the SLAM YouTube channel soon. I want to say I'm really grateful to our comms team, in particular Olivia, and also our partners and our speakers for their hard work in delivering this important event. I'm really pleased that we're joined today by Mind, South East London Suicide Bereavement Service, Thrive London, the Zero Suicide Alliance, and SLAM's own Medical Director Michael Holland, and also the Chair of our Trust, Sir Norman Lamb. So thank you all for joining us. And I'm also pleased that our chaplains are here, and we'll be holding a service of remembrance aimed at people of faith or no faith to remember those who we've lost through suicide, either personally or professionally. This event is important to me for professional reasons. I'm a nurse and I care about these things, but I'll put my cards on the table. It's also important to me for personal reasons because there was a suicide in my family. And unfortunately, from a personal perspective, I'm very aware of the impact of a suicide. I am pleased to hand over to our first speaker, who is Alistair Smith-Egbaji, who is the Chief Executive of Lambeth and Southwark Mind. And thank you, Alistair, and over to you.
Simon, thank you so much for the introduction, and I want to say good morning and welcome to everyone that is here. And with the notion of what Simon has just shared, that this is a very important day, but also it's a very important topic. And I want to just acknowledge my staff, my team, those who have been working with us, the partners. There are a lot of people, as Simon said, have been involved, and it's really great to see so many people here on such an important topic. I want to probably begin by just probably stating something that is probably very obvious to us all. I think if I was to go around this call at this moment in time, I would say that at least 75% of us, or even a bit higher, in some shape or fashion, have known somebody, either a close friend or family member, a neighbor, a colleague. We've known someone that we've lost to suicide. And I believe that we are here because we share that commonality. And it's hard and it's difficult. And I'm proud to be here. This is the first time for myself, but I think I'm proud to be here to see that we take this topic very serious, but not only just serious, there's a lot of things that we are looking at doing to change the perception and most importantly, support people who are challenged in that way that may want to seek that option. I want to be reflective, but I also want to share a story because in the line of work that I do, I listen to a lot of people who have a lot of stories. And the interesting thing about stories and people, we are all individual and unique. And I think when you take the time to listen, to pause, to stop, and to hear somebody's story, many times we can resonate with that particular individual, with their experience, their triumph, their tragedy, or whatever they're going through. But I want to share a very brief story on this particular topic in someone that I actually spoke to last night, but I was aware of the program for the last few months. As we've already established, this is a collaboration project throughout six boroughs in London, working with 3 local minds. I would say Lambeth and Southwark, Bromley, Lewisham and Greenwich, and Bexley. And in June of this year, I would say May or June of this year, there was an individual, a volunteer from a local mind, my mind, approached me and said that I want to make a difference. I want to do something different. The unfortunate scenario was that this individual, her name is Liz, and I believe Liz is actually online, and I've got permission, so Liz, thank you. Liz lost somebody close to her, a family member and a friend through suicide. And she wanted to do something about that. She connected like we are, as you do when you share stories, you connect with others. There is a famous, I want to say he's famous, and he's online as well. He's an artist, gifted artist. His name is Morganico, and he's based in South London. And as I said, he is online as well. He's a sculptor, he's an artist. And unfortunately for Morgan, that's his name, but Aka Morganico, and if you Google him, you go on the website of Lambeth and Southwark Mind, you'll see his story. He also lost 2 members of his family that were very close to him through suicide. So by sharing stories of 2 individuals, Liz and Morgan, they wanted to make a difference and have an impact. And that's exactly why we are here today, to also respect those that we've lost, but also what can we do? So just moving on very quickly, because I don't want to steal the thunder of anyone else, they decided to apply for funding to make a sculpture from wood. It was actually an oak tree that fell in Brockwell Park. Fortunately, no one was underneath it, which is good. And they got funding to create a sculpture that would allow people to pause and stop and reflect on their experiences. Morganico successfully did something very similar in Ruskin Park, which is very close to Maudsley Hospital, and you probably could see that now. But this sculpture that the funding was awarded started and created in June and will finish in October, next month. Why it's significant and why I'm sharing this story, and Morgan, I hope I've got the story right, is that as the commonality is that we've all lost people. And what was fascinating to me in talking to Morgan and Liz from their experiences is that while this sculpture is being created, and I'm going to share my screen at some point so you'll see exactly what I'm talking about, many people have connected to this sculpture simply because of curiosity. Why are you doing this? What's the purpose? What's the aim, and why are you here? And it's amazing by the stories that he shared, how people have resonated with this particular sculpture and obviously seen the importance of this particular sculpture being created. And I think what I've learned from the experience is that when we've lost someone that we love, it hurts. But if we are able to create a space where others can connect and talk to each other and listen to each other, that is almost cathartic and therapy to those around us. And I haven't been to this particular sculpture as yet, but I look forward to seeing the sculpture next month when it is complete. But one of the things that impressed me about talking to Liz and particularly Morgan was that for them, they see the importance of connecting, supporting others. And that's why we are here this morning, to support each other, support individuals within the 6 boroughs of London, but also to make an impact and a difference. And I believe that through our journeys, through our stories, through our sharing, we are able to not just remember those who have been lost through this tragedy, which is very personal to many of us, but I also believe that this is an event that connects people to make a difference. And I believe it's my hope, and I think it's the hope of us today, for many of us, that this is just not an event or a tick box. I am hoping that this is an event that will motivate us to dig deeper and to look further within our organizations, within our collaborations and our partnerships, to see how we could make a difference and help individuals who are suffering, who are in crisis, to make a difference and support them through where they are. So I want to thank you for, I've not been able to get my screen up, which is unfortunate, but maybe that could be shared later. But I want to thank you for listening, and I want to acknowledge Liz Hughes and Morgan Patton for allowing me to share your story in how you are making an impact and allowing us to make an impact in the lives of those in our community. So I want to thank you. I know my colleague Amy Kirk-Smith will go into more detail about what the work we do, but Simon, I want to hand back to yourself and I want to thank you for the opportunity of sharing.
Thank you, Alistair, for speaking. Thank you, Alistair, for your powerful words. They're really very moving. I'm going to hand over now to Dr. Michael Holland, who is our medical director. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much, Simon, and thank you everyone for attending today on such an important event. It is such a devastating event that we must remember it, and we must always think of what we can do individually to help prevent it. Firstly, I really want to say how pleased we are in working with Mind to deliver these bereavement services across South East London for those recently bereaved from suicide. It is such a devastating event that it is so important we recognise the impact it has on families and carers across the system and across the region, and giving them that emotional and practical support quickly to help them recover from such an awful event. One of the things that is really good to see is looking at the National Confidential Inquiry figures recently, and that the last year's figures continue to show that there's reductions in rates of suicides across the whole of England. This is fantastic to see the work that's going on across the nation to help prevent this event happening. However, we must remember that suicide remains the leading cause of death for men under the age of 50, and that it is a growing problem for women aged 15 to 25, and there's an increased rate for those people. So we must continue to do work to reduce the rates overall, and we know that there is work underway across the system that will help to improve this. Back in 2008, I had the pleasure of visiting Detroit and spending time with Ed Coffey, who was the chief executive of the Henry Ford Health System, who were the first health system that signed up to the zero suicide as a goal for their system. In fact, they signed up to us and they'd set this target back in 2001. And I spent time with them to try to get a first-hand view on how were they doing this and what is it we need to bring back to the UK to learn from, and what is it we can do here to help improve and reduce the rates of suicide. I'm very pleased to see, when you look at the work they did, that most of it is what we're doing now across the country and within our own region. So some of the 4 things that they really addressed were access to health services and access to mental health services. This is an area we know we need to work harder on, but we are doing work across the system, and our strategy coming up is really focused on improving access for all the population across South East London, so that it can easily access mental health services, and that it addresses the inequalities of access as well, so that people can get access in a timely way to the services they need and the support they need. The other area they looked at was about the patient and family being at the heart of what happens within the service and the treatment that they receive. Again, this is also about community involvement. And one of the pieces of work you see going on across South London is South London Listens. And this is going to have a huge impact to help prevent suicides in the longer term and help to talk about mental health for the population of South London. This is an exemplary programme that will help to prevent those tragedies happening. And it is well needed that we need to work with our local communities in order to make mental health and suicide something that we can talk about openly, and something that people don't fear accessing services to get the support that they need. The other piece was around self-management. We can see that we've got a lot of work to do around self-management of mental health conditions, but you can see work underway, and we're doing work on our internet systems so that people can have those resources so they can self-manage their conditions through the course of having them. This is an area that makes a huge difference to individuals, to have those self-management resources that we know make a difference to prevent illness and prevent tragedies occurring. The other area they were very clear on was that every intervention that is delivered is an evidence-based intervention. Again, we have the opportunity, working with our partners at the Institute of Psychiatry, to make sure that we allow access to timely evidence-based interventions as quickly as possible for every patient within our system, and to make sure that the science reaches our patients as quickly as possible so that we are delivering the best care for our patients. Again, this is a goal for our strategy over the coming years, to speed up the time from those interventions being designed and delivered to those reaching our patients at the front line. The final bit, and this is the most important bit, is really about the individual's responsibilities to assess and talk about suicide. One of the differences that one saw across the whole of the system in Detroit was the fact that on every patient encounter, people talked about suicide. They weren't afraid to discuss it. They weren't afraid to ask the questions about their mental health and to ask the questions about suicide and the risk associated. We need to open up and make sure we have those conversations with our patients at every contact. We need to make sure we are helping the patients to feel safe. We are making sure that we are addressing and assessing the risk of suicide at every encounter we have with our patients. It is the most vital piece of the jigsaw that will make this work. All the system work in the world will not work without what we do at an individual level. And it is for us as an individual to be able to take that responsibility of talking about suicide and being clear and open that it isn't a frightening topic to talk about. It will help people if we talk about it openly, and it will help people if we assess people and direct them to the resources and the help they need. Today, there's a fantastic piece of consensus statement that has come out from the Department of Health, talking about the information sharing and the need for us to share the information about suicide between colleagues and between the families and carers when people raise these issues of risk. We need to be open about sharing that information. It will help to reduce the risk of suicide. It will help to prevent that next tragedy from occurring. We need to work always with families, partners, carers, all of the community to help prevent that next tragedy. And I really welcome this event, and today is World Suicide Prevention Day, for us all to recognise what role we can play as individuals to reduce that risk for every individual within our population. Thank you very much, Simon.
Thank you, Michael, for your heartfelt and wise words, and thank you also for reminding us all that we need to talk more about suicide. I'm really delighted now to be introducing you to Alex Close from the Zero Suicide Alliance. We're absolutely delighted to be supported by the Zero Suicide Alliance in today's event. So thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Simon. I'll just share my slides with you. So the Zero Suicide Alliance is a members-led charity dedicated to preventing suicide. We work in collaboration with NHS trusts, non-profit organisations, local authorities, businesses and individuals who've been affected by suicide to raise awareness of suicide and its contributing factors. We aim to break the stigma that surrounds suicide and enable leaders to drive meaningful action to help prevent suicide in the UK and beyond. So what do we stand for? We stand for empowering all people to take action against suicide. We want to learn from each other and share best practice for suicide prevention. And we believe that data and research should form the fundamental foundation to drive real change in suicide prevention. We also want to promote positive change as part of national standards and clinical guidelines. Our fundamental principle, though, is suicide is preventable. So what do? We provide free suicide prevention training that teaches people how to identify, understand, and help someone who may be experiencing suicidal thoughts. We have 3 modules that we provide to everybody in the public. One of them is a gateway module. This is a brief introduction to suicide awareness. You can do this within 5 to 10 minutes and you'll learn how to approach someone and help someone who may be thinking about taking their own life. Our second module is a step-up module that we developed during the COVID-19 pandemic. This focuses on social isolation and how to deal with the new normal that the pandemic has brought. Our third module is an in-depth suicide awareness training module that is now endorsed by the Royal College of Nursing. This is a 20 to 30 minute module that looks at 3 scenarios and how you would deal with that in real life. Our training has now been accessed over 1.7 million times from across the world, and what that means in reality is 1.7 million people are now more equipped to have difficult conversations about suicide. We also develop evidence-based resources that can support community and organisational leaders to understand the factors that contribute to suicide and enable them to drive targeted action to prevent suicide. So as you can see here, we have developed a social risk factors map in partnership with the Mental Health Foundation. That is designed to offer you an intuitive way to understand the risk factors in your area. So you can drill down on this map and look at your specific area and the risk factors that contribute to suicide in your area. This then linked to our Facts for Action section on our website, which looks into the risk factors and how you can take action as an organisation or as an individual to take action against the risk factors in your area. So for example, if there was a high suicide rate in children and young people in your area, we have a section on our website that looks into those risk factors and what could be underlying under that. So for example, in that, bullying or child neglect, and then we look at how it's been evidenced to be. So we look at the evidence behind how other people have dealt with those risk factors in other areas. So we're also committed to learning how others have implemented effective interventions and shared best practice in our case study section and our resource library. So we understand that our training may not be beneficial to everybody. So we want to share all the training modules that are available across the world. So we currently have a resource library where we present that information for everybody. So there is a choice whether you want to do the ZSA training or whether you'd want to do any other training modules. We also have a case study library where we ask people to tell us their stories about innovative things that have happened in their communities and share those stories with us so we can then share that information with people across the UK and beyond. We have also recently worked with the Department of Health to on the Share resource, which looks at how clinicians should share information about mental health and suicide. And we are working with Help for Heroes and Universities UK to develop specific modules for veterans and for university students, because we understand that suicide and suicidal thoughts present differently in different echelons of society. Why do we do it? We do it because we believe that suicide is preventable and because one life lost is one too many. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. That was a really informative presentation, really helpful. I've completed the ZSA training and I encourage anyone and everyone to complete it as well. So please do take a look at the ZSA website. I'm now really pleased to introduce you to Kim Hunt and Gabrielle Baker from Thrive London. We work closely with Thrive London and we're delighted that you're again supporting our event this year. So thank you for coming along, and over to you.
Hi everyone, thank you very much Simon, and thank you for inviting us here today to present a little bit about Thrive.
Kim.
Sorry?
You're on mute.
Oh. Is that better? Can you hear me now? Yep.
I hear you.
Great, thank you. It's showing that I'm off mute, so hopefully you can hear me. I'll start again. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. And thank you, Simon, for inviting Gabriella and I to present a little bit about Thrive, about our public-facing campaigns, and also some of the work that we do behind the scenes as well. So let me just share my screen with you. Hopefully you can all see that. So my name is Kim Hunt and I will be presenting with my colleague Gabriella Baker. We are both from Thrive London and work on the suicide prevention work stream within Thrive London. So just to give you a little bit about information about Thrive London, it was actually launched in July 2017 by the Mayor of London alongside other health and care partners. And the aim was to actually create a collective action across London for everyone to be able to speak openly about mental health and have an equal opportunity to thrive. At its core, it's a participation-driven partnership, and we engage with and respond to the needs and insights of Londoners. And working in partnerships across London, we are better able to achieve our goal for all Londoners to have an equal chance to a healthy, happy and fulfilling life. So since March 2020, we've actually been coordinating the public mental health response to the COVID-19 pandemic on behalf of Public Health England and some of our other wider partners, and with the aim of ensuring that London's diverse communities have the strength and resilience to cope with and overcome these unprecedented events. As Thrive London, we are the regional lead for suicide prevention in London on behalf of NHS England, and we actually facilitate the multi-agency Thrive London Suicide Prevention Group, and we deliver citywide projects to prevent and support those affected by suicide. The Zero Suicide London campaign was launched by the Mayor in 2019, and the initial goal was to have 100,000 Londoners take the Zero Suicide Alliance's free online suicide prevention training within the first 12 months of it being launched. Their 20-minute training, as Alex was explaining, enables you to have a direct and honest conversation with someone who may be in crisis so that you can actually help them find some support or signpost them somewhere. To date, more than 250,000 Londoners have now completed the training and helped play their part in saving lives and looking out for other Londoners. So it's a massive step, but our new target is now 500,000 people to take the training in London, and that we're launching that today on World Suicide Prevention Day. So we're now going to look to double our target from those that we already have had take the training. We are renewing our focus and it will be on young Londoners, and as Alex mentioned, we're looking at universities and also the nighttime economy sector we'll be focusing on for those to take the training. We've currently refreshed all the campaign materials, but the most important factor is that it is the same training and it's the same ask. It does only take 20 minutes, but it could make all the difference to someone in need. Another area that we're working on, or we're just releasing today, is Resourceful Witnesses of Suicide. It's a digital launch. It was developed in recognition of the wide-reaching effects that suicide can have to friends and immediate family and a lot of other people, of those that have actually witnessed a suicide of someone you may not know. The guidance is there, it's for the public, and it's also there for professionals who regularly encounter suicide through their work. So it might be frontline staff, LAS, etc. But it is there, and it is a digital, free to access resource. We worked with Support After Suicide Partnership, and it is on their website. And as I said, there are additional content on the website for professionals. Thrive London will also be exploring opportunities to print the actual resource and distribute it with key partners such as Transport for London. So hoping to help that people who would most benefit from the resource actually have access to it. So that's it from me. More on the more public facing. I'm just going to hand over now to Gabriella, who will take you through some of the other work that we're doing in the suicide prevention work stream at Thrive London. Gabriella?
Hi everyone, and Kim's very kindly going to present my slides for me, so I hope it all goes smoothly. Next slide, please, Kim. So when our Task and Finish group was originally set up in 2017, we decided 3 key work streams that would best be delivered at a pan-London level for London. One of those was around a database to share information on suspected suicides more rapidly and facilitate multi-agency review to drive prevention. The other was around suicide prevention training and education settings, so helping to ensure that students were safeguarded and that staff were equipped to respond if they had a student who was in crisis. And the third was around reducing access to medication as a means. But the programme's since expanded since that initial Task and Finish phase, and we facilitate bi-monthly meetings of the suicide prevention group, who continually inform the direction for the suicide prevention programme in London. The suicide prevention group has multi-agency participation. It's got NHS colleagues, local authorities, as well as the voluntary and community sector, who all contribute their expertise to ensure that the work streams we're delivering at pan-London level are the best for the region. In terms of our data insights, we successfully developed a real-time surveillance system for London that monitors the incidence of suicide in real time. As I mentioned, the rationale behind developing that system was to facilitate multi-agency review and response more rapidly, so that we can help prevent this tragic outcome for any others who might be in crisis themselves. We're currently expanding the system to also include data on self-harm and attempts to explore opportunities for earlier intervention, particularly with patients. The database importantly facilitates real-time referral of family members to bereavement support by specialist organisations, as well as more timely provision of signposting information. And I think you're going to hear a bit more about that a bit later on in this conference today. To help build resilience, during the pandemic, we formed new partnerships with voluntary and community sector organisations to help ensure that mental health and crisis support was signposted within the community, so where people are. Importantly, during the pandemic, this was via debt advice and food aid organisations. We're currently exploring discharge processes when someone comes to A&E following an episode of self-harm, to help ensure there's resources to support that transition prior to follow-up as well. The education partnership we have with Papyrus to deliver that suicide prevention training in education settings that I touched on. We're now in the 3rd year of that partnership and to deliver suicide awareness training in education settings. Over 900 staff have now been trained since that partnership was launched. In terms of our data insights, also the training and campaigns, this all helps to facilitate community intervention. So local suicide prevention strategies are tailored to their community, and Londoners are able to help people who may be in crisis, so they're equipped to respond themselves. I'll just focus on one specific aspect of our programme today in the interest of time, but I'm going to be talking about the data elements and how this has progressed and been utilised during the pandemic. So next slide, please, Kim. The database, or as we call it, the real-time surveillance system, was launched in 2019, but it really gained the most significant support in March of last year, and because of the ability it would provide to monitor the impact of the pandemic on suicide incidents in London. We've utilised the system to review and respond to potential clusters, helping to inform the local response, and in every case so far, in fact, that it has not been a cluster to warrant concern. It's just helping to ease concerns where they may arise. During the pandemic, 5 specialist suicide bereavement services have been launched to help ensure that family and friends have access to support. And as of March of this year, I realise this is an out-of-date slide, but it's 204 referrals as of March of this year. We also look at the user system to look at demographic trends, helping to ensure that suicide prevention programmes are targeted to suit the needs of their community. And previously, this wasn't something we were able to do in real time, just due to the necessary delays of national data. We also undertake qualitative analysis of the cases to look at themes that arise, and which these can offer further opportunities for earlier intervention. Next slide, please, Kim. During the pandemic, our data has not indicated a rise in suicides, consistent with the national data that was released earlier this week. Our demographics are also similar to the national statistics, in that 3/4 of suicides that have happened in London have been by men and 1/4 in women. What's been really interesting, though, is as the data we have has increased, is that we've been able to draw comparisons with the national data to look at what age groups would benefit from additional prioritisation in London. So in London, for example, it's a slightly higher older age group in men and younger and older women who will benefit from that targeted support within strategy. We've been able to look at as well incidence over time. You can see that an slightly higher incidence in June was driven by an increased number of male suicides, and often that is the case just because the vast majority are taking place within that community, and it highlights that this is still very much a group who would benefit from targeted support. We were able to identify other themes to prioritise in strategy. So, for example, we've looked at financial adversity in relation to the pandemic and mobilised work streams to address this particular concern. All this serves to emphasise that some people will find the challenges of COVID-19 harder than others because of pre-existing mental health conditions, for example, where they live, or the impact of the pandemic on their financial situation. And the data that we hold all helps to identify those individuals and ensure that the tragic outcome that we're talking about today is prevented for others in similar situations. So what next for real-time data? The existing database that we hold emphasises the value of data and multi-agency collaboration in prevention. We're now looking to expand the system to look at self-harm and attempted suicides, which are significant risk factors for subsequent suicide, and this will help to safeguard patients in mental health services and acute hospitals. Going forward, we'd like to encourage routine utilisation of data to help inform cluster response and longer-term strategy. This is something we've really seen happening during the pandemic, and we're keen that that continues longer term. We'd also like to include the primary care and the prison system in our collaboration, just because those present also further opportunities for prevention initiatives. And longer term, we'd like to improve the accuracy of reporting of ethnicity, gender identity and pre-existing mental health conditions to help inform earlier intervention for disproportionately at-risk groups. And that's it from us, so I'll hand back to Simon, and thank you very much for the opportunity to present today.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Gabriella, for an incredibly informative presentation. I've made use of the Thrive London database. It's really helpful. And thank you and Thrive London for supporting this event. We're truly grateful for what you are doing for Londoners. I'm now pleased to hand over to Amy Kirksmith, who's the manager for the new South East London Suicide Bereavement Service. So over to you, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon, and thanks everyone for having me as part of the event. I'm really pleased to be here today. As Simon mentioned, I'm the manager of the South East London Suicide Bereavement Service. Alistair, as you know, also touched on what we do earlier today. Excuse me, I'm having some trouble seeing my notes. My computer has just frozen. Just bear with me. Sorry about this. So hopefully you can still hear me even though my computer has frozen, I hope. So as has been touched on already today, we provide emotional and practical support to people affected by suicide, and this is particularly close family and friends, although we do also at the moment provide support to witnesses, which Gabriella kind of touched on earlier. And we are a new service. We've been up and running for around a month now, receiving referrals. I want to give you a bit of background and context to kind of how this service has come about and how we've come to be, because we're very much part of a bigger picture and we're one of many services like us in the UK. We've been brought about by a drive within and outside of the NHS to fund dedicated support for people who've lost someone to suicide. This is partly because of this real growing understanding of the impact that losing someone to suicide can have, and more people who are bravely stepping forward and sharing their own stories of loss, which I think has had a huge impact on that understanding of the effects it can have. Sadly, suicide prevention and suicide bereavement are closely linked. So people who lose someone to suicide are themselves at greater risk of suicidal thoughts and behaviours. The work we do is sometimes called Postvention Support, and that refers to this approach of providing rapid response after the death and the aim of preventing further deaths in this group who can be quite vulnerable. So the NHS long-term plan, some of you will know this already, has committed to making suicide bereavement support available across England by the year 2023 to 24. So we are part of that drive. It's worth saying there's fantastic organisations out there who've been doing this work for quite a long time now. And and we have really learnt from them. They've helped inform the guidelines for new commissioned services like ours. The Support After Suicide Partnership have recently published some core standards for postvention services, which is incredibly useful for people like us just starting out our services. Our commissioner is the South East London Clinical Commissioning Group, which is a relatively recently formed commissioning group, and they cover the boroughs that we work across, which I'll try and get this right, are Bexley, Bromley, Greenwich, Lambeth, Lewisham and Southwark. So in our region, the CCG has commissioned a really comprehensive and well-resourced service, and that makes a massive difference to the support we can provide to people. So when we're fully staffed, we will have 7 staff with a wide range of backgrounds and experience. And what this does is it allows for real flexibility in our support. So we're able to adapt to people's needs rather than having a one-size-fits-all offer that we give. I feel really lucky that we're able to do this, so I want to thank South East London CCG for providing the support to fund what we're able to do here. So a bit about our structure and partners. Alistair has touched on this already, and it's not the most straightforward, so bear with me here. We are a partnership between 4 well-established organisations, the 3 mines that Alistair mentioned, which are Bromley, Lewisham and Greenwich Mind, who are my employer, Lambeth and Southwark Mind and Mind in Bexley, and SLAM, of course, are another one of our partners. So each organisation employs at least 1 member of our team, and they support and guide the delivery of the project as well. Our team is mostly full-time, so we have 2 support workers and 2 community chaplains who all deliver one-to-one support and will also be facilitating support groups. As far as we know, we're the only postvention service to employ chaplains, and ours really bring a wealth of pastoral experience, particularly in difficult subjects like death. For anyone who's not aware, chaplains do work with people of all faiths and none, though of course they're particularly experienced in addressing people's religious and spiritual needs. We will also have 2 part-time counsellors who will provide trauma-informed bereavement counselling, incredibly important as well. I'd like to tell you a wee bit about how we get our referrals. So we do take self and external referrals, so from professionals or from people themselves. So if anyone here would like to refer yourself for some support or someone you know or work with, we will ensure the details you need are made available. And we do have a web page on the SLAM website, and that has all the details that you would need to make a referral to us. However, most of our referrals do come from the real-time surveillance system that Gabriella has just spoken about. One of the recommendations made for postvention services like us is that they should all have access to real-time surveillance. So with the help of Thrive London and the Met Police who input into the system, this was really built into our service from the very beginning, which was fantastic. The police, as Gabrielle sort of touched on, they add cases when they suspect someone may have died by suicide immediately or as soon as they can after the death. And they include details of the next of kin and anyone else who might be affected by the death, and that's where we come in, we have access to that information. And this, having access to this system, it really has a huge impact as it allows us to be very proactive and let anyone who might need our service know that we're there, and if they do want it, to receive support immediately in the aftermath of the death. And this is opposed to, you know, potentially identifying people on the basis of a coroner's verdict of suicide, which might be many months down the line and might not capture everyone who might need the support. So it makes a huge difference to have access to that service. A little bit more about what we do, you know, what the work actually looks like in practice. So we work with people of all ages, and basically we respond to the needs that are presented to us when people refer themselves or are referred to our service. There's 3 main strands of what we can offer, so I'll take you through those just to give you more of an idea. So there's the one-to-one support which I've mentioned, and this is the rapid response part of the service, basically giving someone a dedicated worker who can answer questions, guide them through some of the official processes, which can be quite bewildering and impersonal at times, and provide them also with just a non-judgmental space to talk and explore their grief and make sure that they have someone where they know it's okay to talk about suicide and to talk about that person who died as well. Secondly, we will be running support groups, which will be structured 8-week groups, giving people the chance to meet others who can relate to their experience, and we'll explore topics related to grief in those groups. And finally, we will offer trauma-informed bereavement counselling. So for people who need to explore their emotions in more depth, they can do that with one of our experienced counsellors. Just to tell you a little bit more about what our experience has been so far delivering this. So in our first month, we've received around 60 referrals for support, and the vast majority of these have come through the real-time surveillance system. We're currently actively working with over 20 clients. Other people have been signposted to services where they live, Postvention or other services. People have been given initial information and support, and some people are due to take part in our support groups or our counselling. Everyone who's been referred has been informed that there is support available for them if and when they should need it. So what all of this means, funding, the real-time surveillance, the partnership working and our team, what all of this being in place means is that hopefully from now on, no one in South East London will be left feeling alone, or that there's nowhere to turn if they do tragically lose a loved one to suicide. And that is why we are here. So thank you very much for having me, everyone, and back to you, Simon.
Thank you, Amy. That was really informative. On both a personal and professional level, I'm really pleased that South East London now has a specialist suicide bereavement service. So thank you for what you're doing. It sounds like you've been busy. And I'm really pleased that South London Maudsley is working in partnership with mine to deliver the service. So I'm really delighted about that. I also want to extend my thanks to our South East London CCG colleagues who commissioned this service and for supporting the service. So thank you to our commissioners for supporting us. It's now my pleasure to hand you over to the Reverend Dr. Cameron Langlands and his chaplaincy colleagues. So over to you, Cameron. You're on mute, Cameron.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to the service of reflection and remembrance on what is World Suicide Prevention Day. For those of us who have lost people to suicide, it's a day to reflect on who they were, but perhaps more importantly, who they still are for us, and to remember the good times, as well as some of the sad times, as our lives cross theirs. Today's service is being led jointly by the chaplaincy team from SLAM and also the new Bereaved by Suicide service, and as you heard from Amy just now, which is a joint venture between SLAM and Mind in South East London. The whole team includes people who come from a variety of faith and belief backgrounds, and those of no belief background. And those include Buddhists, Christians, humanists, Muslims, Rastafarians, and shamans, among others. So as I said earlier on, today will be a day of memories for many. These memories often bring with them sadness, laughter, and tears. And there's a poem that speaks of this. And it says this: I'm wearing a pair of shoes. They're ugly shoes, uncomfortable shoes. And if I'm being really honest, I hate these shoes. But each day I wear them, and each day I wish I had another pair. Some days my shoes hurt so bad that I don't think I could dare to take another step. But I still wear them. I get funny looks from people who pass me by when I'm wearing these shoes. They're looks of sympathy. I can tell in others' eyes that they are glad that my shoes are not theirs. But the interesting thing is, they never talk about my shoes. They never want to find out or learn about how awful my shoes are, or how uncomfortable they might make me feel. Because to truly understand these shoes, you have to walk in them. But once you put them on, the sad thing is you can never take them off. I now realise that I'm not the only one who wears them. There are many pairs in this world. Some people like me ache daily as you try and walk in them. Some have learned how to walk in them and they don't quite hurt so much. Some have worn the shoes so long that days go by before they think about how much they hurt. But as I said earlier, no one deserves to wear these shoes. But because of these shoes, I'm a stronger person. These shoes have given me the strength to face anything. They've made me who I am. And I will walk forever in the shoes of a person who's lost a loved one to suicide. Amy.
So I'm going to share some words from the philosopher and poet John O'Donoghue. He wrote the following poem about death and how we view it. And for O'Donoghue, the person who died, although no longer physically with us, remains in our heart. Though we need to weep your loss, you dwell in that safe place in our hearts, where no storm or night or pain can reach you. Your love was like the dawn, brightening over our lives, awakening beneath the dark a further adventure of colour. The sound of your voice found for us a new music that brightened everything. Whatever you unfolded in your gaze quickened in the joy of its being. You placed smiles like flowers on the altar of the heart. Your mind always sparkled with wonder at things. Though your days here were brief, your spirit was live, awake, complete. We look towards each other no longer from the old distance of our names. Now you dwell inside the rhythm of breath, as close to us as we are to ourselves. Though we cannot see you with outward eyes, we know our soul's gaze is upon your face, smiling back at us from within everything to which we bring our best refinement. Let us not look for you only in memory, where we would grow lonely without you. You would want us to find you in presence, beside us when beauty brightens, when kindness glows and music echoes eternal tones. When orchids brighten the earth, darkest winter has turned to spring. May this dark grief flower with hope in every heart that loves you. May you continue to inspire us to enter each day with a generous heart, to serve the call of courage and love until we see your beautiful face again, in that land where there is no more separation, where all tears will be wiped from our mind, and where we will never lose you again. We are now going to carry out a candle lighting ritual in remembrance of those we love. Just as a candle lights the darkness, we hope that this time of reflection may in some small way shed a light on your journey, and may the light of love comfort you in your grief. And so, as these 4 candles are lit in honour of those we love, cared for and miss, this candle represents our grief, the pain of losing one that we loved, as well as our courage to confront our sorrow, our sadness, and to comfort each other.
This candle represents our loved one's memory. Remembering the times we laughed, as well as the times we cried, and the silly things we used to say and do to each other, but also the caring and the joy that these people brought to our lives.
You're on mute, Kathleen.
This candle represents those in the caring professions who, often without thought of self, seek to look after the ones we entrust into their care. And so remember their dedication, professionalism, selflessness, and love.
You're muted, Ian.
Ian, we can't hear you.
Ian, we can't hear you. Thank you.
Sorry about that. This candle represents the lives of love. Day by day, we cherish the special place they have in our hearts, a place that will always be reserved for them. We have a reading now from Naomi Sihavnieh, who was a contemporary Palestinian-American poet. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the
I wonder, Cameron, could you take over for me, because I think we're having difficulty hearing him. Thank you.
No problem at all. I'm sorry about that. We seem to be having difficulties with Ian's connection. The poem says this: before you know what kindness is, you really must lose these things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go, so you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in the white poncho lies, dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to mail letters and purchase bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, it is I you have been looking for, and then goes with you everywhere, like a shadow or a friend. Kazim.
Introduction to the reading link, the After Loss Credo. This has become known as the voice of the bereaved, gently explaining to others how bereaved people feel, what their needs and what others to say and do to help them as they recover from their loss. Reading After Loss Credo. I need to talk about my loss, and I often feel that need to tell you what happened or to ask you why it happened. I may frequently need for you to listen while I explain what this loss means to me. Each time I discuss my loss, I am helping myself face the reality of death of my loved one. I need to know that you care about me. I need to feel your touch, your hugs. I need you just to be with me, and I need to be with you. I need for you to believe in me and in my ability to get through this grief in my own way and in my own time. Please don't judge me now or think that I'm behaving strangely. Remember, I'm grieving. I may be in shock. I may feel afraid. I may feel deep rage. I may even feel guilty. But above all, I hurt. I am experiencing a pain unlike any I have ever felt before. Don't be concerned if you think I'm getting better and then suddenly I seem to slip backward again. Grief makes me behave this way at times. And please, don't tell me you know just how I feel, but that it's time for me to get on with my life. I'm probably already saying this to myself. I just need for you to be patient now and to try to understand. Finally, allow me the time I need to grieve and to recover. I want to get on with my life, but I know that first I must walk through the dark shadows of my grief. And although it is almost impossible for me to believe this now, I know that one day my grief will end. Most of all, thank you for being my friend. Thank you for caring, for helping, for understanding. Thank you for praying for me. And remember, in the days or years ahead, after your loss, when you need me as I have needed you, I will understand. And then I will come and be with you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Kasim. We now come to the part of this service of reflection and remembrance. We remember those. For the last 3 years, we've been adding people's names to this box, and it says remembering on it. And inside that box, which we keep in the sanctuary at the Maudesley Hospital, are these hearts. And on each heart is written someone's name. A name which is more than just a name. A name that is bound up in memories and in love and in smiles and in tears and in conversations. If you'd like to remember your loved one, if you send to chaplaincy at slam.nhsuk, that's chaplaincy at slam.nhsuk, give us your loved one's name, and we will ensure that their name is inscribed in a heart and put in this box to be remembered each and every day. We will send you back an email today back as well, because as we all know, those who leave our sides to walk another road never leave our hearts, and certainly never leave our minds. Someone once said, I know for certain that we never lose the people we love, even to death. They continue to participate in every act. Their love leaves an indelible imprint on our memories. We find comfort in knowing that our lives have been enriched by having shared their love. So in a moment of silence, we remember those who are close to our hearts at this time, those who no longer walk with us in presence, but will always walk with us in our minds. The time of concern is over. No longer are we asked how we're doing. Never are the names of our loved ones mentioned to us. A curtain descends. The moment is past, lives slip from their exceptions. Close and compassionate friends, sensitive and loving family. They still look, they still ask, and they certainly still listen. We thank you for them. The drama is over. The spotlight is off. Applause or silent. But for us, the play will the times. What can be said, you ask? Please say their names to us, because their love doesn't die. You see, their names are written on our lives. The sound of their voices replay within our minds day after day. They're off the dead, because they still live. They ghost walk our souls, beckoning in future welcome. You say they were yours. We say they are ours. Please say their names. Hurts to bury their silence and their memory in silence. What they were in flesh is no longer with us. What they are in spirit stirs within us. They were of our past, but they are part of our now. They are our hope for the future. Please understand, we cannot forget. But if we're being honest, we wouldn't want to if we could. We know that you cannot know. Yesterday, we were like you. Understand that we dwell in both flesh and spirit. We don't ask you to walk this road, for you see the ascent is steep and the burden is incredibly heavy. We don't walk it by choice. We would rather walk it with them in the flesh, looking not to spirit worlds beyond. We are what we have to be. What we have lost, you cannot feel. What we have gained, you may never see. But please say their names, for they are alive. We will meet them again, although in many ways we never parted. Their spirits play light songs, appear in sunrises and sunsets. They are real and shadow, they were and they are. Please say their names to us, and say their names again. They are ours, and we love them just as we always did, and even more as each day passes. So please, say their names. This morning we've remembered a person of laughter, and we've honoured a person of care. Yet we feel a sorrow in our hearts and a sense of sad despair. But if we are wont to give them the honour they are due, we must hold on to all that they were, good and kind and true. In remembering their uniqueness, their compassion and their calm, the overwhelming pain of loss will soon find a soothing calm. So talk about the good times and the way that they showed they cared, the time we had together and the experiences that we shared. Let memories surround us, and a word someone may say will suddenly recapture a moment, a time, an hour, a day. Maybe look up at the evening skies to see that twinkling star that sparkles brighter than the rest and somehow doesn't seem so far. For if we keep those moments, we will never be apart, and they will live forever, safe within our hearts. Thank you for being part of today, and thank you for us, and for allowing us, both the chaplaincy team and the Bereaved by Suicide service, to be part of your story this morning. Thank you. Simon.
Thank you, Cameron. Thank you, Kazim, Amy and Ian as well. We can post the chaplaincy email address in the chat if anyone wants to send a name to the chaplaincy team here at South London Malta, and they will put that name in with the other names. I found that moving, powerful, thought-provoking and meaningful. It's deeply appreciated, so thank you. I'm honoured to be handing over to Sir Norman Lamb, who's the chair of our trust, who will be saying a few words just to sum up this event, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon, and can I start by thanking you for hosting this event today and for all the work that you and others have done in organising it. It's an incredibly important event, and I think we're all really grateful to you for the work that you've done to make this happen. Can I also thank everyone who's spoken today, who have spoken with such dignity and such compassion and power. I have been left at the end of this event with a sense of hope, a hope that we can make a difference together. And this great united front that we've presented today, I think can potentially be very powerful. So I want to thank also our brilliant partners, Lambeth and Southwark Mind and the wider South East London Mind, the Zero Suicide Alliance, Thrive London, the South East London Bereavement Service. It's truly brilliant to be working together with you all in a common endeavour. So thank you all very much for your own commitment. Can I thank also everyone who participated in the service of Remembrance, which was very moving and powerful, and was an opportunity for all those of us who have been touched by suicide ourselves, including me and our family, to remember loved ones lost. And of course also for all those who in a professional capacity have had to cope with the trauma of loss of life through suicide. So thank you all very much for your contributions today. I also just wanted to stress that it is so important to support the loved ones of those who have been left behind as a result of suicide. And thank you, Amy, and your team at the South East London Bereavement Service. It is brilliant that we now have that dedicated service in South East London to support people impacted by suicide. So good luck in all that you are doing in this vitally important work. I first came across the idea of zero suicide when I visited Merseycare in Liverpool, when I was minister responsible for mental health, and Joe Rafferty, the chief executive there, who's one of the founding members of the Zero Suicide Alliance, spent about half an hour talking to me, describing to me what they had done in Detroit and why it was so important that we all commit to this approach in this country. And we subsequently launched a Zero Suicide Challenge to the NHS as a government. And so it's so good to now have the honour of chairing this organisation with a new strategy soon to be launched, which includes a commitment to the zero suicide concept. And I wanted also to pay tribute to Steve Mallon, whose idea it was to establish the Zero Suicide Alliance following the tragic death of his teenage son, Edward. And I should also mention that Geraldine Strathdy, one of our own non-executive directors, is also a founding member of the Alliance and has contributed massively to its work. The power of zero suicide is the combination of, first of all, an audacious ambition. As Alex said so powerfully, one life lost is one too many. And that ambition to seek to save every life is very powerful and very important. But on its own, it is not enough. It has to be combined, as Michael, our medical director, said, with an application of evidence of effective approaches, which we know can save lives. And as we heard so powerfully from Thrive London, now the use of data to help us in our objective of applying an evidence-based approach to saving lives. So this powerful combination of an audacious ambition and the application of evidence can be so effective in saving lives. I was very struck when I attended a Zero Suicide Summit in Australia a few years ago. And in the papers for the summit, there was a graph, and it showed the progress we have made across the world in reducing the loss of life in all the main disease areas, so cancer and stroke and heart disease, where the graph shows a downward trajectory. So many people have been saved as a result of our medical advances. And yet with suicide, the rate of suicide remains stubbornly high and stable across the world. And yet we know there is evidence of effective approaches to reduce the rate of loss of life. So why have we not been more successful? And for me, we must use this as a call to action to improve our effectiveness as a country, as organisations, as communities, to save lives, and together come back to that very powerful united front that we have presented today. Together, we can make a difference. Our organisation has made this commitment now to zero suicide, and together we can save lives, and that's a very powerful thing to do. I remember a conversation I had with Lewis Appleby, one of the leading thinkers in the whole field of suicide prevention, who has done brilliant work throughout his career in this country. And I remember him saying to me that having looked at thousands of suicides over the course of his career, there was not a single case where something could not have been done differently that might have saved that life. And that for me was very, very powerful. And so together we can make a difference. So thank you, Simon. And let me just end by saying that Alex told us about the training that is available from the Zero Suicide Alliance. Let's each and every one of us participating today commit to undertaking that training and to spreading the word across our organisations and across our communities that everyone should seek to do that training so that we can, as a community, improve our ability to save lives. Thank you very much, Simon.
Thank you, Sir Norman. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who's joined this event today. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you to our comms team, and thank you to the speakers, chaplains and our partners for working together to deliver this event. And also, finally, I want to thank everybody who's trying to prevent suicide. So thank you.